Well, and a big hi and hello and a welcome to Power Rankings. It happens every single Tuesday. You get the post on NFL.com and you get the show accompaniment right here. And we are with the Zeuser, the man who is the brains behind the 1 through 32 that gets you all Twitter-pated all day. Dan Hanzus, right here to my left. I'll get it right. To my left is where Dan Hanzus is. Joining us a little bit later, we will have a mystery guest to examine one or perhaps more of the teams in the top 32. And Cynthia Freeland will join us to make math sense out of all of it. And of course, as always, we are brought to you by Energizer.
Still going.
Still going. Exactly. There we go. We got it right. Let's get to it, Dan.
I feel increasingly ridiculous with these sunglasses on, but I understand it's important.
I feel fine. I feel fine. You know why?
Okay.
Because the 1 through 8 is so bright. I have to cut the glare with these beautiful Energizer sunglasses as we're still going. You see Kansas City, they got the win on Thursday night. They stay at number 1, but let's go beyond, I should say, 1 and 2. The Ravens with the best record in the league last year, the regular season, to number 3. And the Packers. Oh, Dan's too cool for his sunglasses. Fine. Let's go to the Packers, Dan. They head to Minnesota. It's a border clash. And they get out with what seemed to be a darn relative easy victory for Aaron Rodgers and company.
Hell hath no fury like a legendary QB scorned. And I was just blown away by Aaron Rodgers' performance in Minneapolis on the road. And I know it's not really the same thing on the road this year without people in the stands at most games, but it was still incredible to see him go in there against a Minnesota team that fashions itself a Super Bowl contender and just embarrass them. I mean, rolling up over 500 yards of offense, throwing for 364 yards, 4 touchdowns. Could have been 400 yards and 5 touchdowns if some of his receivers made a couple more plays. But, you know, this is a guy that looks like he's on a mission. And I know we sometimes tend to get tied up a little bit with these narratives, and now Aaron Rodgers is going to be the greatest quarterback ever again. So let's let that play out. But for 1 week, oh my goodness, did he look like a guy that was driven to destroy people this year?
Yeah, I will acknowledge and remind those that saw it. You invited me onto the Around the NFL NFC ranking show. You assigned me the Packers, and I said it was a head scratcher to me. All the people that were writing off a 13-3 season, saying it was a soft 13-3. My pushback to that was, if it's a soft 13-3, you don't win a playoff game against a good team like Seattle. And Davante Adams, for all of the belly aching over the lack of weapons, is one of the best receivers in the league. He is in the conversation as the best receiver in the league. And you know, when you have one on one side of the field, that means they're committing multiple resources to that guy, allowing perhaps lesser talents at the same position to thrive. And he was able to spread it out to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, to Lazard. Each of them had a touchdown. And look, it's the second season in Matt LaFleur's offense, and I love what that defense is able to do. I mean, my gosh, whatever Gary Q, and we'll get into the Vikings a little bit later, but they basically rendered that Vikings offense moot for the first half of that game when it was paired with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they look to be absolutely the bully of the NFC North, and there's nothing that's going to convince me otherwise.
Yeah, and that's why it's not just Aaron Rodgers and the offense that got them into the top 3. It was a total team effort. Kirk Cousins had 5 pass attempts in the first half, and all their scoring was in garbage time. That was a well-rounded, stellar performance by Matt LaFleur's team.
All right, let's go. You mentioned balanced, and for the Saints, they come in at number 4. Not necessarily as balanced. I mean, you look at the final score and you see some points there, but I think there are still a lot of questions about Drew Brees and his ability at this particular advanced age. But man, that defense was as dominant, I think, and then some, as we thought it was going to be coming into the season.
Yeah, they gave Tom Brady fits, and they look like they are the real deal, and they'll be one of the top 5 units in the league. And I thought, just like maybe hit pause on locking in Aaron Rodgers for first-team All-Pro, I feel like there's been a little too much hand-wringing about the Saints' performance on offense. Maybe this is really the end of Drew Brees, and maybe Sean Payton's trying to hide him in the offense right now and giving him cover by saying things like, that was the worst game plan I've ever called in my career. This could be the end for Brees, but also, would you really be stunned if he threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in week 2? This is one of those guys where I don't write him off right away.
Yeah, no, nor do I. But at the same time, I mean, it was interesting to see that game play out the way it did, to score 34 points with Alvin Kamara really not doing a lot, with Michael Thomas getting banged up and really not doing a lot. And again, Drew Brees needing 30 passes to get 160 yards
I know.
of pass. I mean, the numbers weren't there, but defensively, again, we get to it. And you think about the addition of someone like Janoris Jenkins, and we know the talent's there. There have always been some questions surrounding him. But, man, this has become, and look, we're going to get to the pass rush of some of these teams that were elite, and we're going to get into that. But I think it's more and more becoming a secondary league. And there is not a better secondary in the NFL than what the Saints have. And I think when you're able to pair that with a play caller like Sean Payton, a future first ballot Hall of Famer like Breeze, that's why there was so much excitement about this Saints team going into the season.
Yeah, they're with all the, like I said, hand wringing and Peyton beating up on himself. The fact that they got out of that game a double-digit winner, and this is rich teams' problems.
Yeah. Let's shift to our final team to focus on in the top 8. And what I thought was perhaps the most impressive performance of the first week, and that's what Russell Wilson did with the Seahawks. Man, they finally cut him loose and didn't have to wait until the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter to say, all right, Russell, go out and save us. He was doing it the whole game.
Yeah, and I hope this is a week one narrative that sticks. Brian Schottenheimer taking the shackles off and letting Wilson cook, as they're saying on the web. What's what the kids are saying, money. And, it was really fun to watch him, and the play calling backed up this idea. The fact that they were passing the ball, that I believe there was only 20 rushes for the day. And Russell Wilson, and it doesn't surprise any of us, and I'm sure it's not surprising Pete Carroll, the fact that he just carved up the opponent, and he can do that. I think if you were making a short list of MVP candidates, Wilson's got to be high up.
Well, look, there were a lot of people last season that thought he was the MVP, and basically it was just the lack of numbers behind it. But with what he was asked to do, repeatedly saving his team in the final 8 minutes. Now, I mean, you just go back and look at the logs of the games last year, and it was basically, all right, Russell, we tried to run the ball and keep it conservative for the first 3.5. Now you go win us the game. And I think perhaps some of that carried over to this year. You said hell hath no fury, like, a scorned Aaron Rodgers. Well, Russell's a different disposition. But I do think there was probably some of the, hey, let me get out there and build us a lead, and then you can lean on your defense to carry us home, as opposed to vice versa, and get us out of some of those, is in the baseball term, high-stress innings,
Sure.
which seemed like they found themselves in the middle of, in what's going to be a nasty, street fight of an NFC West division all season long. So certainly impressive. It's why they move all the way up to 7. And when we return, we will lean on what happened to the teams tabbed to be top 10 material. We get into what went wrong with those squads that Dan deemed worthy of potential dominant designation after just a single. All right, more power rankings presented by Energizers.
Still going.
Still going. 9 through 16. There we go with the Rams. Big victory over the Cowboys. We'll get into that a little bit later, perhaps as soon as a little bit later in this segment. We'll see. But let's start with the Patriots. Cam Newton makes his debut in a Patriot uniform. Tom Brady is gone. It's the first game in New England in a long while for that dynasty, and they get out with a victory, and it certainly looked a lot different, Dan.
Yeah, it did. This is the ground and pound Patriots now, and I was stunned to learn that Cam Newton's rushing total, 15 rushes on Sunday, were the most he's ever had in a game that didn't go to overtime. So this, even beyond his Carolina, 20-something days, this was out of the norm for Cam Newton, and it certainly worked. I guess the big question, and a lot of people are asking this, Money, is, Cam, not an old guy by any stretch, 31 years old, but also, has some wear and tear through the years. Right. Is this sustainable over an entire season?
Well, and look, Dan, we just watched it, right? He, outside of that first touchdown that he scored, every time he took off, he got hit. Every single time he was tackled to the ground. He's not sliding. He's not getting out of bounds. That's just not in his nature because he's physically dominant in a physical game, and he wants to use that to his advantage to get every last yard. So that's kind of what we suspected going into this relationship, right? It is a one-year deal. It is a low-money deal. And when it comes to health, you get the sense that Josh McDaniels, as you see him get tackled to the ground by 3 different Dolphins there landing on top of him, they're all in for 1 year. They're not necessarily looking for perhaps, hey, this is going to be our quarterback for the next 6 years of our dynasty. But it'll be up to Cam, I'm sure, to tell them how he's feeling today moving forward.
This could be the quarterback equivalent, Money, of about 5 years or so ago when the Cowboys gave DeMarco Murray about 7,000 carries because they knew he was going out the door anyway. And by the way, have you ever, I don't know if you saw what happened at the end of the game, Money, in a fit of rage or in a confrontation with another man, did you ever rip off his chain as a show of strength?
Well, we think back to the old Crabtree-Aqib Talib showdown between a chain grab, right? This is the first chain controversy we've had since those two went at it out in the West. I would just say, and you know what? Cam said, hey, look, it's a locket. It's got photos of my kids in there, but I don't know, maybe just leave it in the locker till after the game, and then guys aren't going to grab at it. Like we were watching Evan Ingram decides to wear his gloves all fancy like with the straps hanging off, and it ended up in an incompletion. It's like maybe just put the Velcro up, and then that way no one can grab them.
But you didn't answer the question, Money. Have you ever done that to show disrespect to another man?
Believe it or not, Dan, I have never found myself in many confrontations surrounding an individual that's wearing a chain out.
I'm disappointed.
I don't hang out with a lot of chain out guys. I do quickly want to mention, because we said it about the Saints, Bill Belichick, no different. Dominant secondaries dictate terms on defense. 3 picks for the New England secondary. For all the opt-outs and question marks we had, you get 3 interceptions in a game, probably going to get a victory. All right, let's shift to what I thought was one of the most exciting looking games of the week 1, and that's what Kyler Murray and the Cardinals were able to do to the 49ers.
Yeah, this was the performance that I think some people expected more of last year, where Murray was moving the ball through the air, but also with his legs, and that was what I kind of really took out of this game. If he ends up being the type of guy, at one point he was over 100 yards rushing, and then he lost that 100-yard day with some QB kneel downs. But his ability to immediately form a bond with DeAndre Hopkins, who had an insane day, and then use his legs like we're seeing here.
Look at this.
If he puts it all together, everybody just assumed he was going to be Lamar Jackson year 2, and then it felt like a little too on the nose to assume that. But geez, after watching week 1, it could happen.
Well, and you know what did you see there in that highlight? We just got done talking about Cam and 15 carries, and of those 15 carries took a shot on about 12 or 13 of them. Kyler Murray is Russell Wilson. And the way I used to describe Russell when he first came into the league was he's Floyd Mayweather Jr. He never takes a clean shot. They just have this innate ability to recognize when they're supposed to slide, when they're supposed to step out of bounds. They're able to elude direct contact, and that is sustainable. And when you have that highlight of where he rushes for that touchdown, it's cartoon-like speed. When you just see him pull away from someone in the secondary that's got 4.4 speed, and he's 2 steps, and all of a sudden now he's 5 steps ahead of him, That's going to be a load in the NFC West.
Plus, his helmet is like 12% bigger than most other helmets, it seems. So
yes,
it's kind of funny watching him run too. It's like
exactly. Let's get one more in, and that's the loss. So there's 2 victories. Let's go to a loss and one that led to a slide, and that's the Cowboys down 3 spots to number 10.
I mean, come on, Dallas. You know, we all we called you out and said we're going to talk you up all summer. Do not let us down with a bad performance on offense in week 1. And it's exactly what happened. The Rams, led by Aaron Donald, stifled them. And I'm not going to panic about the offensive performance because I think they'll get right. I think the Falcons are in for a world of hurt in week 2. But the injuries are really what got on my radar here, especially Leighton Vander Esch. As good as their offense is, and it's going to be great, the defense is suspect. And when you take Vander Esch out of there, all of a sudden it becomes a real liability potentially.
Yeah, I'll say just kind of to put a button on it, there's a couple things. And I can remember asking quite a few people. I remember asking Baldy about it, former NFL offensive lineman, one of the best to break down film. Said, are we not concerned about the retirement of Travis Frederick, about some of these offensive linemen really starting to get a little long in the tooth? And certainly Zach Martin is not the guy that you thought was going to be the one that got victimized. But look, anybody that goes against Aaron Donald, he's the best player in football. So you're going to have to deal with the best player in football. But if Lyle Collins isn't right on that right side, it ain't like Leonard Floyd was lighting it up in Chicago. That's not, what Dante Fowler was doing out there the last couple years, or Robert Quinn even before that. That, I think, is a major concern because Dak having to get rid of the ball quick and under duress, that's not what you need from Dak. You need that solid offensive line for him to have an extra beat to get those weapons involved. That's why they didn't have a 100-yard rusher and they didn't have a single 100-yard receiver. And like you said, should be a get-right game against the Falcons. By the way, that one of many as we got the NFL started in full on Sunday. And just in case you feel like you missed anything, well, we cobbled this together for you.
Brady takes a gun snap. It's picked off. 3-2-1. Touchdown. Janoris Jenkins.
Cuts back to the left of the 10. Breaks a tackle to the 5. Kyler Murray with a touchdown run. Wind up throw for Miller. On the shoulder. Can't. Touchdown Bears. And Lamar Jackson has delivered his 3rd touchdown pass of the day. Malcolm Brown. His 2nd touchdown of the night.
Lincoln grabs Devontae. Touchdown.
Can he get him down? He did.
Wide open. Keelan Cole's going to walk into the end zone.
Jacob to the end zone for the touchdown. His 3rd of the day.
Back it upfield, and he waltzes into the end zone. Touchdown, Patriots.
Touchdown, Washington.
Wilson wants it all. Metcalf got it.
Joe Burrow, who after running for that touchdown, held on to the football for a souvenir to last a lifetime.
All right, Dan, it is time for me to play the role of host and you to play the role of contestant. It is our mystery guest segment for the folks at home not knowing who might appear in that center box and which team we will be discussing. But they will know as soon as you say stop and one of these fancy NFL logos turns into an actual human being. Are you prepared to play, Dan?
I don't know why this stresses me out every week, but it does. All right, here we go. No whammy, no whammy, no whammy, and stop.
Hey, it's the UCLA Hall of Famer. Nobody dares wear that number 32 in Duval County. He is the radio analyst for your Los Angeles Rams, and he's got his own logo. As you can see it on that beautiful step and repeat behind him, it's Maurice Jones-Drew. Maurice, what's happening?
Oh, nothing, guys. I'm just happy to be here. I do have some quarrel with Dan here, but I'm going to let it play out throughout this segment.
Well, before you assault him, before you assault Dan verbally, let's start with what you saw and what you can tell us about that 20-17 victory by the Rams. You were at SoFi calling the game. You're the Rams radio analyst. What did you expect to see versus what you actually saw in that game?
Well, everything I saw throughout training camp proved to be true during week 1. The running back by committee, Jared Goff being on target, this offensive line being very dominant. Those are the things you saw in training camp. On the other side, defensively, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey are 2 of the top defensive players in the league. They showed up multiple times throughout the course of that game. And then everyone else played their role. Their rookie safeties both came in and played a great job. Fuller played, 98% or 90% of the snaps, led the team in tackles. We saw that throughout training camp as well. And John Johnson III, the leader of that defense, showed up huge. So it's not like it was before where it was all Todd Gurley on offense and Jared Goff with the play action pass. This is more of a group of guys showing up and making plays.
I had them at 17 entering the season. I know, MJD, you're mad at me about that. I moved them into the top 10 because for all the reasons you just said, I thought it was just such an impressive performance. It was a true team performance, and I thought Chris Collinsworth on the NBC telecast, and I'm sure you did even better work on the radio, but made a good point of how they played to, Jared Goff has limitations in terms of his ability to move and escape pressure, and the offensive line had its issues last year with injuries and effectiveness. Getting the ball out of his hands quickly, using the offense in that way seems like it was a big step up for them. Did you have that same takeaway watching them?
Yeah, I thought everyone in week one tried to get their quarterback in rhythm. That's the most important thing. And that was how they started the game. Quick passes, play action passes, getting Jared out of the pocket a little bit because the Cowboys' defensive line was phenomenal. There were times throughout the game they started to wreck the game and break up the offense. You're seeing 3 and outs. But at the end of the day, I truly believe Sean McVay had a vision. They didn't go outside their group to go get any more offensive linemen. They didn't really go outside their group to go get any other specific positions. They drafted well, and those draft picks showed up. And again, it's it's hard to replace Todd Gurley. No matter what anyone says, it's hard to replace the ability he has with the ball in his hands. But they did it with 3 guys, and those guys showed up. And when you can run the ball for 150 yards, it opens up everything. And that's what you saw with the Rams offensively. And then defensively, Aaron Donald just dominated. I don't know if you guys saw Baldy's breakdowns, but he highlighted Aaron Donald for about 5 minutes of how he just destroyed this offensive line, going against whoever he wanted to. And so he found ways to impact the game, not only in the passing game like we're seeing here, but in the running game as well.
Zach Martin.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter who he was going against, but this defensive line showed up. Leonard Floyd showed up huge on that 2-minute drive, and that's what you were looking for. And then there you go. Jalen Ramsey, Johnny on the spot when that play needs to be made.
Yeah, last thing on the Rams, and then we want to sneak in a little bit of Jags here, Maurice. But just for people that maybe didn't have a chance to see it, I mean, they probably should have because it was the nationally televised Sunday Night Football game. But if you look at the box or the advanced analytics, you see 7 targets to Cooper, 6 of them completed, all while Ramsey was in coverage. What did you make? And obviously he came up with a big play at the end of the game when it needed to be made. But what did you make of that battle between one of the top route runners and one of the top cover corners, and maybe who got the better of the other?
Well, it's a different scheme than Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips is going to allow Jalen to play press man all game. Brandon Staley didn't do that. They were playing different zones where Jalen was playing off and he was completing slants, and they were giving up certain things. I think when you're a defensive coordinator, you have to say, we're going to give up this to stop that. And so they were willing to let Dak and those guys dink and dunk down the field and then tighten up in the red zone more than what Wade Phillips is more of an aggressive play caller, is going to have you press in his face. And I again, they went after Jalen. I mean, they threw at him a couple times. So, Michael Gallup had some good catches on him. That's going to happen. I think anytime you get paid, guys are going to, go after you a little bit. But he rose to the challenge and made some big plays as well. And to be honest, it's week 1, right? It was the first game. You're going to have some rust on both sides of the ball. And I think as the season goes on, he'll be back in that form of Jalen Ramsey.
So, MJD, I had the Jaguars dead last, and you are one of the greatest Jaguars of all time entering week 1. I bumped them up to 29 after a big win in week 1.
What a move.
You want to kill me for that? Or do you want to say I was right not to go crazy off one win? Just do whatever you want. I'll take the abuse.
That's so disrespectful, Dan. You're so disrespectful, okay? I understand why you had him at 32. I mean, again, I picked against them. I picked the Colts to win. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know what to expect. You trade all these players away. You're a bunch of young guys playing. I did not know what to expect, so I was very conservative. But since they won against the Colts, up only 3 spots, are you kidding me? You got to be kidding me. Only 3 spots. I mean, they should be up in the teens right now. They beat the Colts, who I'm assuming you had them high up as well. But because I am a man of my word, I'm going to pick against them again this week, and hopefully they win again. And if I pick against them for 16 straight weeks and they win 16 times, or 17 straight weeks and they win 16 times, then you know what? I did my job.
Well, I think for those folks, and I'll try to euphemize this as best as possible, that enjoy watching football being played on Saturdays and what could be in Duval County. The man with the middle part and the fancy mustache might be wrecking their plans. The best laid plans of mice and men just might be put to shame by Gardner Minshew, who has got that magic, man. 20 passes, 19 completions. They ran 20 fewer plays than the Colts, and they end up beating them by a touchdown because there is just something special about that guy, man. It is a heck of a lot of fun to watch. You'll hear him on the Rams broadcast here in Los Angeles for the radio, and, of course, you see him on NFL Network right here on NFL Fantasy Live. He's got his own logo. Nobody dares wear the 32 in Duval County. We love having him. Maurice, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right. Could it be true, Bisky? Did Mitch's magical fourth quarter in Detroit slap some salve on the open wound that is the Windy City's quarterback quandary? We'll break it down for you Bears believers or non-believers next. Welcome back to Power Rankings, presented by Energizer. You want to say it? Come on, Dan, say it.
Still going.
Yeah, 17 through 24, one of the bigger drops you see there at number 18. Number 24, we already discussed that Falcons mess against the Seahawks a little bit, but let's get to those Colts at number 18. And a lot of people trying to figure out what they ought to do with the AFC South and predicting a division champ. Quite a few went with the Colts, and certainly they lose to a team that you had at number 32, as you just mentioned, Maurice Jones-Drew coming into the season. So what did you make of their trip down to Duval and getting out of there with a loss instead of a win?
I mean, I don't want to be overly reductive, but Money, you should know this as much as anyone as the voice of the Chargers. Stop me if you've heard this one before. A Phillip Rivers-led team that should be a favorite in the game commits some untimely turnovers and ends up losing a game they have no business losing. And that, I guess, followed him to the Midwest. And, it's got to be a bummer to Colts fans, because the idea here was that the reason Phil Rivers would not struggle the way he did in his final season with the Chargers is because now he's in front of the best offensive line in the league, and that's going to help him in so many different ways and cut down on the turnovers. But that's not what happened at all in this game.
That interception was brutal. And look, this is something, this isn't, this is my fourth year calling Charger games, so I got to see him for 3 years. It was something that predated me considerably, and that is Phillip Rivers trying to do too much, not just taking what the defense gives him, but for whatever reason, feeling like he's got to put an offensive roster on his back and on his arm, and repeatedly it gets him into trouble in untimely moments. And that was the case again. look, you saw, and maybe it had to do with the injury to Marlon Mack, but you saw what he was able to do on that first drive. Mack was gashing the Jags. I mean, through the air, 3 catches for 30 yards, on the ground for 6.5 yards per carry. And once he went down, it was almost like every other drive looked different than that one with Marlon Mack moving forward. He threw the ball 46 times. That's crazy for that team.
That's way too much. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, Jonathan Taylor, the rookie's going to step in and be a superstar. No. And maybe he will, but like Marlon Mack, that's a bigger loss than people are letting on. And I thought it was with Rivers, it was especially kind of jarring when the guy that he played against, Minshew, was the opposite. He took only what the defense gave him, and he executed and stayed within himself. Rivers looked reckless by comparison.
Yeah, and again, he believes he can fit any throw in anywhere, and especially at 38 and in a season here in his advanced age with maybe a little bit less arm strength than he used to have. You saw that C.J. Henderson pick was brutal. And it's certainly, I saw it last year. They were 1-8 in one-score games, and in most of those 8 losses, there was a late interception that was responsible for it. All right, let's shift and let's get to our next team, Dan, in our area, our third quadrant, as we like to call it, and that is the Bears. And we got to figure out how to measure the first 3 quarters versus that last quarter when discussing what they are moving forward.
Yeah, I gave them a cursory 2-spot bump for getting the dub, but I don't know if we've figured out that this team is, back to 2018 mode because, Trubisky was pretty terrible. The offense didn't do anything for 3 quarters and then came to life. And when you're talking about their opponent, the Lions, a team that seems chemically addicted to blowing games in excruciating fashion, it all adds up to nice win for the Bears. Showed a lot of heart. Good for Trubisky because he was feeling the heat. But how much can you really take out of this game?
Yeah. I mean, all I would add is, look, DeAndre Swift catches that pass, and it's a totally different story. So we'll reserve judgment for each of these teams, perhaps for next week's show, seeing how they fare in their Week 2 matchups. All right, let's get to the final one, what I thought was arguably the most impressive performance by one side of the ball of the week, and that's what the Washington football team did to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, that pass rush is no joke. And we've been hearing about this for a couple of years that, Washington, they're not a very good team, but that defensive line's good. Well, now you got Chase Young in there, one of the most gifted edge guys to come out of the draft in years, and he makes his presence felt immediately. It was just waves and waves of pass rushers coming at the Eagles, and that'll play. I mean, I'm not saying the Washington football team is going to go to the Super Bowl this year, but if they stay healthy, they're going to give a lot of teams trouble with their pass rush, and it's going to cause turnovers like it did with Carson Wentz. They have something here.
Yeah, look, that is a unit of a football team that can wreck games, that can change games. And again, hearkening back to our NFC preview that I'm sure is archived on the Around the NFL podcast, absolutely. You assigned me the Washington football team, and I just said that the disparity between the defense and the offense is the greatest of any team. And you saw the offense was borderline inept for the majority of that game. But when you are creating turnovers, when you are sacking a quarterback 8 times, when you are wrecking an offense, you give maybe an offense that is challenged, your own offense that's challenged, short fields, and an opportunity to score points. And that front's going to do it all season long. And we'll get into that with one of our impact matchups a little bit later. In the meantime, though, up next,
it seems a little weird, Money, that you only bring up my podcast to say that your predictions were right, but whatever.
Yeah, I do. That's exactly right. It's all about me. I am a narcissist. I do not, however, negotiate numerators. That is the master of the memes, Cynthia Freeland. She's coming on with the math as it pertains to mobile quarterback carrying offenses next. That was an All right, welcome back to Power Rankings presented by Energizer. Here it is, the bottom quadrant, 25 through 32. You see a couple teams moving up. The -7 of the Jets, I think if you could put them at 33, you would, Dan. However, let's focus on the other New York team. Monday Night Football, Giants versus Steelers. Giants slide 2 spots back from 28 to 30. And what you saw from the first game under new head coach Joe Judge.
Oh, Danny boy. You know, actually, I saw a team that was fighting hard against a really, really good Pittsburgh team, so I'm not going to kill them for the loss. But, you know, that 19-play drive in the third quarter that ended with the goal line interception, that was the backbreaker. So if they punch that in, who knows what we're talking about with the Giants right now. But that's not how it played out.
I guess I'll paint a bleaker picture and say, yeah, who knows? But when Saquon Barkley is supposed to be the centerpiece of your offense and he gets 15 carries for 6 yards, that's an issue, and I think it's an issue that speaks to the weak spot on the team, and that's the offensive line. And when you have your left tackle opt out, and you got to put a rookie in, and you're still trying to figure out how to piece, that group together. I'm not taking a shot. I don't think there's any reason to take a shot at Saquon. The guy was hit either at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. I believe 11 of those 15 carries. So I don't know what you want out of him, but I think if you don't have him going, it's going to be another long year. And like you said, it's, kind of more of the same from Daniel Jones and those 24 touchdowns. I think that's what it was last year, right? 24 touchdown passes, but all of those fumbles and just bad decisions being made that derailed drives, unfortunately reared their ugly head again.
It's great Pittsburgh defense, though, and that offensive line of the Giants deserves a little bit of time to gel. So I don't know. I get what you're saying, but I think the Giants had more positives out of the game than negatives.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, Pitt's an elite defense. I am not saying that that's a game they should have been in, but totally understandable to look that way against Pittsburgh. Just clean it up. Let's get Saquon going. And it is time for Power Moves presented by Energizer. She is the ace of the algorithm, the premier predictive analytics authority, and she's ours. It's time to get your mathletics on. Cynthia Freeland here to build our brains. And Cynthia, today we are taking a look at mobile quarterbacks, right, and their impact on these offenses in 2020.
Well, when I looked to see Dan's rankings, I actually picked this topic before I even knew exactly where he was ranking it, because him and I are so in sync on this that these mobile quarterbacks, the guys who have designed runs, they made huge impacts. And look at what happened. It's like we're all the same one big happy running family here. And I want to start with Kyler Murray on this one. You saw Kyler Murray, he averaged almost 7 yards per rushing attempt, which is pretty ridiculous, especially because he also took 40 pass attempts, which is really the reason that they won this game. It's interesting, they were the biggest movers up, plus 9 slots to number 14. Dan, we are so in sync. I can't even deal with how good that is.
I know that rarely happens with us, so this feels good. It won't last, I'm sure, as the season goes along.
Well, you are in sync that your trees have managed to merge. The greens in your home, if you look over Cynthia's left shoulder and Dan's right, you can see that it's one plant. So that is how in sync the two of you are. Now, Kyler is young on the scene in just his second year. A lot of people wondering whether or not he's going to follow that same path of exceptional rookie season, followed by an MVP, followed by a Super Bowl championship. But Cam is old in the game. He's just at a new address, and certainly we saw some of that old Cam at a new spot, Cynthia.
Yeah, old Cam, new spot, zone read, Josh McDaniels. It was a really great fit. You saw it being super efficient from the standpoint of, you got those first downs from Cam's legs. 75 rushing yards. That is not a very Patriot-like stat line from a quarterback. That's really what's going to make a huge difference, because their defense is good enough to kind of push them up. I think 4 slots up this time to number 11. That's a nice solid move, but I think they could go even higher. And by the way, this is called a money tree because we got to keep it all in the family.
Oh, how exciting. Look at that. I would assume Dan is not that kind to get a tree named after me, but
I'm working
I
on
appreciate
it.
I
can't afford a
Cynthia.
money tree.
Now, Dan moved the Pats up. Obviously, the Cardinals moved up because both of them won. However, the Texans were not as fortunate. They got handled rather easily by the Chiefs, but you did do some digging into Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and Dan also bumped them up a slot, so it works as well here. It really wasn't Deshaun Watson's fault for this loss. There was some interesting play calling. First down, a lot of rushes when they were playing from behind. So the game scripting was more like a preseason game, not so much like what you would see from a regular season game from the Texans historically. So those rushing yards, they mattered. His ability to move mattered. It kept the space open. We all know the passing game is a little bit questionable for the Texans. We don't exactly know how it's going to net out. So Deshaun Watson as a threat of rushing, that's a really big deal, and that's going to be the reason why they don't lose as many games or they pad their fall or whatever, because they still went up in your ranking.
Yeah. Do they have a true number one receiver? I know Will Fuller stepped up there and had a 100-yard day, but a lot of that was done in garbage time. Hey, Cynthia, can we try a high five? You ready? 1.
Okay,
2,
ready?
3, go.
That worked.
We're going to work on that every week.
That worked.
That was
I do want to point out for those of you that might be interested in a little bit of homework, not only do you have NFL.com/Freeland for all of Cynthia's findings, but you see over her left shoulder along with the money tree. I just recognized this, Cynthia. We mentioned last week it's the Fibonacci sequence, but a lot of people point to the fact that the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio are darn near the same thing, and you're wearing gold today to go with the Fibonacci. I mean, it really talk about.
What are you guys even talking about?
Wrapping it up. Come on, dude. 0 + 1. 1 + 1 is 2. 2 + 1 is 3. 3 + 2 is 5. Come on.
I've been out.
NFL.com/Freeland. When we return, the Power Rankings most meaningful matchups, a trio of top Week 2 tilts that will impact the Zeusers. Top 32 this time next Tuesday. Thursday Night Football is back with the battle for Ohio. It is Burrow and the Bengals taking on Baker and the Browns. Coverage starts at 6 p.m. Eastern, and that one is exclusively on NFL Network as we welcome you back into Power Rankings presented by Energizer with Dan and Zeus, the Zeuser. Time for me to take center stage, Zeuser, and focus on some impact matchups. The 3 games. Look, I'm just your sidekick. I'm a guy that's carrying your water, dabbing you with the towel. You know, if you get a little sweaty. But here we focus on 3 games that I think will have the biggest impact on your 1 through 32 for Week 3. And we get started with the Rams and Eagles. One, because the Rams already made that big jump with a win over the Cowboys. They do it again against the Eagles, especially in the fashion that we wondered whether or not it was going to be their weakness. If that offensive line holds up, if they can continue to get action off that running game that they didn't have last year, convert third downs like they did against the Cowboys, we're going to feel great. But more importantly, oh boy, that offensive line, and I asked the question prior to the season, you got an O-line that is ravaged by injury. You brought Jason Peters back to some degree, like, I guess we'll bring him back. Lane Johnson says he's returning, but with no Brandon Brooks at guard and you got Aaron Donald now, That could end up being a big mess. Stop trying to throw the ball downfield and show off that Rager and Deshaun Jackson have speed. Just shorten things up a little bit here.
Yeah, schedule gods weren't nice to the Eagles here, who were trying to figure out their offensive line and to get Washington and now Aaron Donald back-to-back. Whew.
Yeah, speaking of Washington, this is going to be interesting, right? Because it's strength versus strength. It's the defensive line versus, again, a suspect offensive line that we had questions about going into the season, but an offense that looked pretty darn good against a very good San Francisco defense. So it's kind of one of those where you know the Arizona offense is really good, especially with what Kyler Murray was able to do with his feet, nearly 100 yards rushing. You mentioned he took a late loss that prevented him from hitting that century mark, but 14 grabs for DeAndre Hopkins, 150-plus yards. And again, they dissected one of the best defenses in the NFL. Do it again, and I think you're going to see those Cardinals move up. Same thing for Washington. Do it against another really good offense and show that you can dominate on one side of the ball, and I think you'll see them make another major jump.
Yeah, Money, this is a really good choice because especially if Washington delivers another killer performance and Kyler Murray's running for his life and they smother that offense after what we saw against San Francisco, everyone's going to be talking about Washington as this sleeper team that could be an NFC East favorite.
Right. I mean, it looks like the NFC East very well, especially if it doesn't go right for the Eagles against the Rams. Could be an 8-8, 9-7 again. Quickly, we'll wrap it with the Colts and Vikings. One of these teams is going to be 0-2. It's that simple. We already talked about the issues with the Vikings against the Packers. We certainly dissected Phillip Rivers' untimely interceptions, the loss of Marlon Mack, and what that means, plus a defense that wasn't able to get off the field on third down. But I'm more concerned about Mike Zimmer's specialty, Dan. And if Phillip Rivers can get it right and they dissect those young corners, man, that could mean some. Ngakoue had less tackles than Adam Thielen. That's how bad it went for them against the Packers.
I know, Money. I agree with everything you just said. I know you're a capital B broadcaster, but the 0-2 thing, can we please? It's 0-2.
What?
Can we please?
Oh, I've always done that. It's O is not a number. 0 is a number.
0-2 is
O
jarring.
Is a letter. 0. Do you understand is a number? O is not a number. All right. Honest assessments. Let's get it going. And because I'm so preoccupied with my own analysis, we are starting with the Niners. There we go. 49ers coming off a loss to the Cardinals.
Yeah, the Niners, I'm worried about their offense right now. And Jimmy Garoppolo did not have any wide receivers that he could trust in week one. But Garoppolo also did not have a good game. And now George Kittle has an injury because Jimmy Garoppolo airmailed a throw that made him go up and get crunched. So play better, Jimmy G.
Yeah, I thought he had a bad week. And I'm wondering what they're thinking in San Francisco because they got a defense and supporting cast that ought to be doing a lot. I mean, granted, the receivers are hurt. All right, next up. Honest assessments. Show me the graphic because I forgot where we're going. Raiders. There we go. Get a victory against the Panthers in Carolina.
Yeah, the offense looks good. And I think that is going to be something that continues. Josh Jacobs is one of the best young running backs in football. He should have been the offensive rookie of the year last year, with apologies to Kyler Murray. And he showed it again with 140 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Derek Carr, who everybody likes to beat up on and pick on, I think he's going to have a nice season in that offense.
There were a couple moments that I was not crazy about Derek Carr, specifically the goal line sequence where he just got rid of the ball too quick, and that's always been the knock. But, beautiful pass to Nelson Aguilar there for that touchdown. Might have been the prettiest one of the week. All right, honest assessments there. For those of you that say the Zeuser here has a plum gig playing around with these power rankings that happen to be the most, when we return, you will see the derision and the hate that he has to absorb because of, your opinion, man.
We didn't get rid of this segment yet?
All right, Power Rankings presented by Energizer. One last segment, and this is where Jesus has to wear it. Here we go. No way Seattle is under Buffalo and Tennessee. I'll concede Buffalo at best, but the Titans? Come on. I'm with them.
The Titans' performance was fine. The kicker stunk out the joint, but I thought Tennessee played very well on Monday night. So
but
whatever.
You thought Tennessee looked better than Seattle.
Oh, come on. It's a tough road game, too. My ranking was perfect there. Next.
Raiders are 1. Now, this one I love. Raiders are 1-0. Oh, you have upset Raider Nation. 1-0 behind 5-0-1 teams.
Greg,
answer.
Greg, you're not the first guy to mess this up, but if you want to just look at the standings, go to NFL.com, scroll to where it says standings, and look at that. But
standings.
This is a power ranking, so I'm judging it on what I watched from the teams.
Okay. What did you not like about the Raiders that had them behind 5-0-1 teams?
Well, good for them getting a win, but I think the Panthers are probably like a 6-10 team. So let's not go, carving out space for another Lombardi trophy just yet.
Okay. But still 5-0-1 teams. I just want to make sure Raider Nation knows that that's the case. All right. Let's get one more in here. How do you have the Colts at 18 and the Jags at 29? We just beat them, brah.
Listen, I love Duval. I've never been there, but this Gardner Minshew phenomenon, it's such a perfect marriage of player, team, region. So I get your anger. Just show me again. Show me it wasn't Phil Rivers choking. Show me that you're actually pretty good.
Exactly. There's nothing to win except for power rankings after week 1. So hopefully next week we'll appease Raider Nation and perhaps Duval County. A big thank you. Way to go, Dan. To the crew behind the camera as well. Another brilliant bit of production. To Maurice Jones-Drew, Cynthia Freeland for checking in. All of you for watching so us two goofs can get after it once a week. For the Zeuser, Matt Money Smith will be back next Tuesday.
Bye.